Obviously, there is something that's going on in our industry with some news that was delivered from the administration in the South.
What? I haven't heard anything.
No, not on your not
South,
on your Google,
Antarctica
Google
has
alert
some things to
list.
say.
I don't.
Right.
I just live under a bridge.
Like a troll?
Like a troll. Yeah.
Oh, we're learning
That's
a
a
lot.
whole other side of the
It's,
conversation.
it's called that troll lifestyle.
Oh, okay.
That old troll.
You know,
lifestyle.
trolling. You know trolling? You guys are not trolling.
I'm familiar with troll. But I am curious to hear, as individuals who work in the film industry, the announcement of 100% tariffs on any films produced outside of the United States and how that may or may not impact our film industry.
I think it's important, first of all, to debunk the statement made by Trump. Because in truth, because we all heard that and everyone went, what? How do you even do that? How do you tariff? How do you even know what that means? But the report or the plan that John Voight, of all people, has come up with,
Harold Savior John Voight.
yeah, is actually quite specific and detailed. And then Donald Trump got that and said those words, which are not actually words anyone can make sense of or do anything with.
And they're not expressed in the document like that at all.
So there's that piece, which I think is important because he's always causing chaos, and it's important to be like, okay, some of this is true, or it is going to come into play, but it's not as it is phrased there. That's not.
You kind of have to take what Donald said and throw it in the garbage and then read the document. And the document is actually not insane.
Well, parts of it are.
No, most of it's, I would say,
Some of it
most of it looks like any other incentive program any other country.
Give us like the layman's breakdown of that document.
Okay, so any country that wants to entice people to come shoot, and has been doing so for 20 or 30 years, drawing people away from Hollywood, would do so by having one or more layers of incentives, money they're going to give you for every dollar you spend. Some of them have 25%, some 40%, some 50% of your money will be handed back to you if you shoot in any number of territories. So what currently exists in the US is state by state. You know, Atlanta has some great ones, and that's why Marvel set up shop there. And Hollywood doesn't have much, and that's why everyone's leaving Hollywood. But what this document is proposing is a 10% federal tax incentive that's stackable with what's in all of the other provinces, in all of the other states.
Yes.
One day America will become our 10th province, or 11th province.
The 11th province.
But
We're the
between now and
third,
then.
the third territory.
Third territory.
Yes, exactly.
And what it does is it makes America competitive, which is ultimately what it would need to be in order to have anybody who was going to go shoot in Pinewood not go shoot in Pinewood. But this tariff thing does come into play in it, where it says if you are a movie that could have shot in the US and you are a US production, you decided to go get Britain's tax credit at Pinewood Studios, we are going to slap you with 120% tariff based on what your tax incentive was. So if you go to the UK and you get a $2 million tax credit for your $7 million movie, and you come back, you are going to have that $2 million ripped out of your hands with a 20% slap in the face for doing so. Which is like, normally incentive programs are all you need. But Hollywood, American companies are so used to leaving that John Voight has decided to add an extra little stick to the carrot. And that's, if you could have shot here and you just chose not to, smack. It's extreme, but it's not crazy.
Well, it's not. It's just more specific than 100% tariff on any foreign-made movie, because there's nothing in that document anyway around movies from other parts of the world being sold in America, being screened in America.
It doesn't address foreign films at all.
It doesn't address foreign films at all. It specifically seems to be for American-produced films who choose to not film in America. And not just films, it seems like it's production.
Yeah, there's a good chance this involves television as well.
Well, it certainly involves streamers.
Sure.
And streamers make a lot of episodic.
So I know a lot of Canadians read that and immediately balked because we've built effectively our entire industry, entertainment industry, production industry off of U.S. projects.
We have.
Very short-sighted, bad choice.
Yes. So as three Canadian filmmakers, How does that affect you? Does it affect you? Does it something that you worry about? Do
Oh,
you
we're
think
fine.
about?
Yeah.
What's going to
I
happen?
mean, assuming that's
No.
all that happens.
If that's what happens, what's going to happen is all of these new studios we've built will be empty, and they will be very cheap to rent for actual Canadian productions to shoot in Canada. A lot of people are going to be unemployed.
It's bad. Like it's really bad for the sector.
You would crater the sector.
Yeah, it's
Incredible.
terrible. Like we don't participate in that side of the industry
yeah, we
very
don't do
much.
we don't do production services for American
So,
companies.
Yeah, but
But anyone who does,
we know a lot of people
sure.
who do.
And
And
But
it's
we've certainly, all of us have worked on American projects
yeah.
within our careers. So
Yeah.
you even have to think in terms of like, if you're emerging right now
It's
and the entire industry has been based off of that, how
you're
are you
emerging
feeling?
right now, I would hopefully, if you're emerging right now, you're doing it DIY.
Yeah.
Because within the system, aside from like telefilm and all that kind of stuff, like, even if we put money, if Carney puts that money back into the sector, like he's saying, and he wants to make us like the BBC, we were saying it should be like,
There's still one broadcast.
that's one broadcaster, and that's okay. Maybe we'll be on the optimistic side, maybe up to 50% of what we used to be doing.
I'd say like 20.
20. Melissa's in the middle.
I'm in the middle, not spatially, but
I'm saying like,
Theoretically.
yeah, 50% is like, and that's like being very, very generous, extremely generous, because
yeah, I do think it'll hurt a lot of distributors and sales companies in Canada as well who are building co-productions with American studios. Now, there are provisions for co-productions in this plan, we'll call it, in this document, but there are caps to that, and I think they have to do 75% of production and post, and the post aspect is also a really big deal for Canada. We do so much post VFX work, so much post work here, Quebec, Ontario, Vancouver. That will be a massive challenge if companies like Netflix or Warner Brothers or any, especially the legacy studios in the US. I feel like the streamers, some of them, like there are obviously ways to get around this. If it's
Stop being a U.S.
Irish
company.
production
Yeah.
because you're headquartered in Ireland, then you don't have to, and the very wealthy people and the companies with all those resources are going to be able to
Oh, this won't affect them at
game
all.
this system
Yeah.
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
This could result in a huge exodus from Hollywood.
It could,
Because if you live in the U.S. and you make a U.S. production, this affects you. If you're an American who has given up your citizenship and now you live in Ireland or now you live in Italy, you're making an Italian film. It's just a foreign film. So there's every chance that there will be a mass exodus and people will leave Hollywood.
So how does Canadian film industry position itself to actually benefit from an action like this?
We make our own stuff.
yeah, that's a bigger thing.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think this presents a potential hole in the market or a reorganization of priorities.
It presents a lot of cheap ingredients. There will be an excess of labor. There will be an excess of space and an excess of equipment. All of this stuff, equipment's easier to sell to the States. People like to live where they are, but the studios you can't pick up and move. So the opportunity here is, unlike when Shyamalan showed up and stole all your gear,
all my gear.
on your last movie.
Yeah.
Wait,
like,
what happened?
And I liked that movie, but the
Yeah.
whole time I was like,
so for the movie Trap, we went at the same time when we were doing Gin and Wild Dog. We went at the same time. Like we had because of the strikes and all this sort of stuff. They were basically Whites was giving us
a great deal.
an extremely good, like we were getting everything we wanted, and with that on top. And then Shyamalan's Trap was going to shoot, but they were going to shoot a month after us. And what they did was they paid double.
price?
They paid full price, or they paid double just to park all of our gear for a
Come
month.
on, why?
Well, and more than that, William F. White. The hell, man?
Yeah.
We had a deal.
Yeah.
but that's how this business
That's
goes.
how the
But
business
now-
goes.
It's show business.
There's going to be, but now
say.
William F. White's going to be
Say that.
sitting on, or Sunbelt. Sunbelt's going to be sitting on some dusty equipment.
I-
So that stuff's going to be cheap now.
I would say the way forward for us is kind of embracing a model like Korea, in that they made cultural exports there a big part of their GDP. Like they learned early on, this was like in the early 2000s. And so it took them about a decade to build their industry up because there was government incentives and what have you. I would like to see something like that because look at all, like as Matt said, we have all these gear houses. We have all these stages. We're built for
There's so
this.
much talent
We have
here.
tons of talent.
Yeah.
How many people do
Jeez.
we know that?
That's why people come here.
migrate?
People like working here too. It's
Yeah.
the
Our
crews
crew's
are great.
great.
Our
Yeah.
actors are great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we are in a better position to start not making our own stuff than a lot of other countries.
All the infrastructure's here.
The infrastructure is already here. It's built. So like if you let it crater, I think you're doing a disservice because like a good chunk of people in Ontario are employed by this sector.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So-
Vancouver.
And BC, my God.
BC,
My
it's
Quebec.
goodness.
Yeah,
Alberta, even Alberta, like
Yeah.
they just The Last of Us, the second season shot in Alberta, didn't it?
I think.
They shot in
Yeah.
BC, but the first season for The Last of Us, second season was in BC.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought the first season was in BC.
Definitely.
Anyway.
Alberta. Anyways.
One and one.
Correct us.
Anyways, yeah.
It was
Set
Canada.
us
It was
straight.
just shut in Canada.
Yeah.
I think the
You don't
other
get that
things-
snowy without being in Canada.
I think the other things that'll be interesting to see are if there are culture, if there's math that they're going to start doing.
Which they cribbed.
Which-
John
yeah.
Voight just copied and pasted the UK cultural test into his homework
Yep.
to be like, this is what a cultural
Listen,
test
why
is.
Somebody
do more
use
work.
ChatGPT for
It's
that.
true.
Why do more work
Yeah,
at
exactly.
this point?
But a cultural test basically means, is your writer American? Is your director, are your actors, are your characters, is the setting America? Like all these things that basically mean if you're bringing it to here, we are deciding how here your movie really is.
If that's the case, I think that it'll be interesting to see if they continue to hire as many British and Australian actors to play American parts.
They won't be allowed to.
They
may
won't
not
be allowed to, or that'll be harder. I also think if they're going to start doing things in a similar way to the way Canada and the UK do them, what's that going to mean for output? Because here's the thing. The minute you have a tax credit incentive where you have to hire a bunch of people to evaluate all of this, that is not very compatible with the kind of release schedules and the pace of the film industry.
Oh, that's a bottleneck.
Yeah, it's like that's a thing in Canada that's a real obstacle for us.
It could take them years to approve a tax
And so,
credit.
like, how's that all gonna go?
And not to mention the fact that you're going to have a governing body doing that.
Yeah.
And last I checked, Republicans don't like
They don't like that.
Large
bureaucracy.
That's right.
bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy's not their
Bureaucracy.
friend.
So, I mean, it all remains to be seen if any of this even happens.
I think a lot of it's bluster, to be perfectly honest.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a-
Oh, I think there's every chance the U.S. realized we're a place that makes movies. We got to act like one. We're not. It's not the golden age of Hollywood. We're losing everything to people who have a proper incentive. And so I think the incentive is going to happen for sure. I think that some kind of punishment, the carrot only works with the stick with America. And I also think there's another element in this document that involves updating theaters, which
this is actually a side that I was
Super
like,
helpful.
oh, well, this is great if it's about,
keeping theatrical
keeping
business
theatrical
alive.
business alive and refurbishing theaters. I was like, oh, well, this is a whole other kettle of fish. And it's good to see that in there. But I also think, though, that it's so, as usual, it's so myopic, because what it's not taking into account is like part of the reason why all this is happening. The whole industry is contracting because the streaming bubble is popping, and this isn't going to fix that.
No.
No.
Well,
So, like,
yeah.
I understand the problem happening in Hollywood and in the US in terms of contraction, and there being something like 30% less stuff shooting in Hollywood. That's real. So this is like, there's a real basis to what's being discussed, which actually, like, in some ways makes this more reasonable and less insane than some of the other Trump announcements and choices. But it's just so, again, it's so myopic because there's so many moving parts now. We are a global film industry. And so it's very difficult to try and separate that out now.
But that's what I feel like is the whole, like, to go on a macro side of not just film and television, but it feels like they're trying to take us back to before globalization. And unfortunately, the bottle's been uncorked when it comes to that. And so I think going back only just leads to pain and regression and a lot of people losing their jobs. And I don't see, like, if they're going down this road, yes, reform, I have no problem with reform. Reform is always a good thing because you're always assessing and trying to see what's going
and
to work better.
incentives would be
And
good there.
incentives
Like,
would
they
be
A
working.
federal
need
incentive
incentives.
makes a lot of
Like,
sense.
don't get me wrong, it's a good, like, from what I read from the document, there are a lot of good ideas in there, but it's what I struggle to find is implementation and then this oversight, because as Melissa pointed out, speed and getting to market is a very big thing. Release windows, all these things. There's a lot of,
and that also suggests to me that there's opportunity for who gets the benefit of these incentives.
It'll be first come,
What's
first
the-
serve. And then they'll run out of money.
Yeah,
and that's going to be the big concern with any tax credit. The big concern is what's the cap.
Yeah.
And so this is a huge industry. And so careful what you wish for, John Boy. You could get everybody here, and then suddenly by Tuesday you've run out of money.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to building something that is a solution regardless of how much money's in the pot, and that's why they put the tariff part in, I think. Because when they run out of money, the stick is still there. Just because you've eaten the carrot doesn't mean you're not going to get hit with the reason you should not bring your movies or television to Vancouver or Canada. Keep it in Hollywood. That's the point. Right?
But the issue too with the idea of like, could you have shot it here? Outside of like your movie, it's June and you have to shoot it in a desert not Nevada.
Monument Valley.
Like,
not going to cut it. Yeah.
Like it's
Death
not,
Valley isn't going to work.
Exactly. Outside of those things, like, could you have shot it somewhere? Again, that's a very narrow view of that, because when you're looking at a film budget or you're looking at a film project, it's not just is the location right or do they have the kind of environment I need. It's a lot of things, and so this will also have an effect, like it does in Canada, on what kind of movies get made, what kind of stories get told, how far imaginations can go.
Listen, we're about to have a whole season of extraordinary Christian nationalist films coming from the U.S. It's going to be the golden age.
Please.
But I mean,
I was feeling not so bad, and then you said
but
that.
honestly, like, she's not wrong. That's already here. Like, if you looked at some of the releases, there's a lot more Christian, like at the Varsity, they're playing Christian films. You know what I mean? There is a marketplace for that.
Well, and I wonder if Amazon, when they're coming up with their new Bond movie, how much of it's going to be based in the States? Because this is an American company who needs to find a way to globe-trot the next Bond from Arkansas to Louisiana. That's your exciting.
Like, for instance, The Amateur, which we just saw. So there's a movie that takes place in multiple countries. I guess if they look at that script, are they going to say,
you could have rewritten it?
Who's evaluating that? And then who goes, okay, well, you've written a script where you have to go to all these continents and countries. So I guess it's okay that you did that.
Well, it opens itself up
like
to
so
subjectivity.
in a way that I'm like,
Yes.
But that's the thing. It's like, and then
Republicans-
how many people, like, think about how many scripts are in development, or how many pieces of media that are right now that we don't know about that are under the microscope being developed. Now, you have to scale that up, and so how many? Like, it could create jobs,
Government jobs. A bunch of people subjectively
government red tape
deciding.
jobs.
Yeah.
For Doge to then go and intersect.
But then it's like processing time. It just adds another checkpoint for the process.
And there is something about this that speaks to me. There's
like the Hays Code.
Literally was about to say, I'm like, is this the precursor for the Hays Code, or like the 21st century version of the Hays Code?
Again, then
Just
we're
geography
then
instead
we're
of
just,
nip slips.
Then we're
But
just
they'll
regressing,
use geography as a way to determine, well, it may be geographically fitting, but does it fit our moral code or conduct that's required for
and
these
ultimately
funds?
you get rejected, and then your carrot and stick situation tells you whether you can make that movie.
But back in the day, in those studio systems, like, they didn't. I mean, it was a big deal to go and shoot a Lawrence of Arabia somewhere else, because otherwise it would be Tyrone Power in brown makeup in a studio that's India. You're gonna go see the Maharaj or whatever it is, right? And so what it may
the
mean,
10 Commandments.
yeah, exactly.
Desert.
But what it may mean, I mean, because we have digital technology and we have now
Everything is
now
gonna be
we
an
have
LED
now we
wall.
have generative.
Yeah,
like,
volume
I think
shifts
the big
everything.
I think the big thing too also is, like, does this make generative more of an acceptable thing now? Like, because hey, we can't go here and we can't go there, so
but we
can generate it.
Yeah.
And it will also force anyone in charge to basically say, like, well, you can't go shoot where you want. Have you considered using AI as a means to get there?
Well, and what it's going to do is smoke Pinewood. Like,
But that's what I was going to say. What's
a storied
gonna happen?
studio like Pinewood where everyone from James Cameron to like Disney just decided that's where we should move Marvel to. Like all Pinewood's going to be gathering dust unless the BBC is shooting.
Well, and,
like,
and
that's
all these other places, we went to the European Film Market this year, and you see like all of these countries that are building film offices that have crew that have started, have filmed some high profile projects and now are building an ecosystem for themselves. And so how are those going to be impacted?
Well, yeah, like right now Netflix is filming Enola Holmes in Malta. So that's a 40% tax credit on labor.
There's another
a lot of
Enola
expense. Yeah,
I
believe it or
mean,
not.
the third one.
Oh
They're
my
up to
God,
3.
there's another Enola
I liked the
Holmes.
second one because it was about phosphorus poisoning and the industrial. Anyway, I liked it.
So basically,
Enola
basically, Enola Holmes 4 ain't shooting in Malta. Like they're gonna be shooting that on a soundstage in Warner Brothers. Like they just built 10 new sound stages and they're gonna be busy.
Yeah. All right. Well, this leads to a very interesting conversation, and I think it goes past just this discussion between us. So what are your takes on the tariff? Let us know what your thoughts are, what you're anxious about, but at the same time, what opportunities may arise as a result of this. Let us know.
Who are you talking to?